All right, here we are in part 3 of my giant Ableton Live 12 course series. So this section is all about making tracks. So we're going to focus on producing music with Live 12. So we're going to start in the arrangement view timeline. Now, if you've seen some of my other sections of this series, then you know that I kind of lean towards the arrangement view, but session view is just as good for producing music. One is not better than the other. In fact, I use arrangement view most of the time, but sometimes I'll make a track in session view just because it makes my brain work a little differently. I know a lot of people who work exclusively in session view. So if you're more comfortable in session view, don't worry. We're going to work in both in this class because it's important to know how to use both. But we're going to start in arrangement view. So this first chunk of stuff will be a little bit of review if you took part 1 of this series. But I want to make sure we're all on the same page with our general editing functions, and then we'll start talking about building tracks from there. Okay, so let's dive in. Okay, let's talk about our general timeline commands. Now, I'm not a big proponent of memorizing 1,000 key commands. You can navigate Live almost entirely through key commands now, but I really don't like spending time memorizing key commands, so I try not to give you too many of them. But there are a few that are super helpful for navigating Live very quickly. So let's go over a few of those as it relates to the arrangement view and editing. So the first is just kind of what I call our Microsoft Word key commands, right? So if I click on a clip, we can do copy, Command C, V, or Command V to paste. And if you're on a PC, it's, what is it, Alt or Control? I can't remember. But C to copy, Command V to paste. We can Option click and drag is my all-time favorite thing. That means leave a copy where it was and make a new one. It's like pulling a clone out. I use that all the time. So copy, paste, Option click and drag. Let's talk about looping. If we want to loop a part of the arrangement, we just highlight something. Doesn't matter if it's got a clip on it or not, but whatever we highlight is going to get looped. So Command L is going to turn on looping. And no matter what I highlighted, all tracks are going to play in this loop, okay? This is our loop brace. We can move that around wherever we want. And lastly, let's do locators. These are little locators. You can see they're tiny little play commands because you can click on them, and if I double click on them, it'll start playing from there. But they're great for just leaving yourself little notes while you're working. I use them all the time. As you can see in this track that I just started, I put, maybe a violin solo here and bring that ARP thing back here. So to make one of these locators, we're just going to control click up here in the timeline and add locator, and then say whatever you want to say. This part, whatever. If you want to get rid of it, control click on that locator again and delete, or you can just hit delete. So locators are super cool. You can move them around by clicking and dragging on the flag, and you can double click on them to start playing from that spot. Cool. Remember that if we select a section of a clip, we can copy from within it and paste. Same thing with audio clips. As long as we paste onto the same kind of clip. So if you're copying from a MIDI clip, you need to paste onto a MIDI track. If you are copying from an audio clip, you need to paste on a audio track, unless you want to do the conversion thing, which we went through a bit on the first class in the series. Okay, so those are our kind of main big picture commands I just want to get in our head right away. Next, let's talk about some things we can do to an audio clip, in particular reversing, and a couple other ways we can modify clips. Okay, we have a couple tools to modify clips. Let's take a look at some of those. So if I click on this clip, let's solo this and just hear what it is. Okay, neat. Now if I go to the clip view here, let's loop just this. If I go to the clip view here, there's a couple things I can do that are just fun, creative tools. The first down here is reverse. There's just a big old reverse button sitting right there. That can be really interesting if we're trying to modify a clip, come up with some new ideas, do something interesting with it. I use that a lot. This edit button is interesting. If you click on it, it's going to say no sample editor application has been selected. This is for like if we really want to get down in the weeds and like do some very fine-tuned editing to that clip, we could open a sample editor. And it used to be really common that you would have a separate program that was like your like scalpel type tool to like really get into a waveform. There was one called Peak, there was one called Sample Editor. There are a bunch of different ones, but it's really fallen out of fashion now. Like I don't even have one set up. So I never use that. And I never really find a need to. There's a lot that we can do right in live. So that's kind of a legacy thing that I don't think is around anymore. Another cool thing we can do is with the BPM here. Now, this is a warping trick, and we talked a whole bunch about warping in the last class, but I won't go into all the details about warping here, but if you want to do a quick kind of crazy warping thing, you can divide the speed by half or double it. So this is going to make strange things happen. Let's pull this out here and then double it. Oh, we're still backwards, which is actually kind of cool. But let's reverse it so that we're going forwards again. Now we're going half speed. Go back up to normal speed and then double speed. Okay, just some fun things we can do. I like to play with these. There we go. Lastly, while we're in this area, gain, we can just crank up the gain of a clip right here, but please don't do that. This is not a good way to do it. You could do it here if you just need to add a quick boost to a whole thing. Like look at this little G minor arpeggio clip I have here. Okay, sure. In this one, I could go in and just give it like a little boost. That's probably fine. But the majority of your volume, you should try to use either your track audio or the clip fades or automation for them. There's a couple other ways, and we'll talk about that when we get into mixing, but this tool down here, this gain, is kind of a, I think of this as kind of a last resort when we just need another big boost. So try to avoid using that at all costs. The reason is you're very likely to clip by doing this, which is what this is doing now. It's going to be all distorted and nasty. And it's also just kind of easy to lose track of your boosting here. So it's just not a great idea. This pitch control down here, however, is fun. Go nuts with it. You can see I've already done some pitch control because I wanted to play around with this sample and it was not in the right key, but it was close. So I just used the pitch here. But this pitch is very responsive. So that's a fun tool to mess around with. Let's get back in the right key. Okay, just some kind of ways to get us started with some quick modifying of clips. All right, let's talk about clip fades. All right, I like to think of clips as having 6 corners. You've maybe heard me say this before, but let's go down to this clip here. So we have these 4 corners, and then we have 2 corners at the top of the header part of the clip, and they all do different things. So the header part of the clip, if I put my mouse over it, I can click and drag to pull out more of the clip. Now this is either going to just expose more of the clip that I've hidden, or it's going to continue to loop the clip if it is set to loop. Okay? Let's go back. The same thing is going to happen on the left side, where if I pull back, it's going to expose more of the clip or loop it if it's set to loop. Now, the corners here are going to trigger a fade. So I can fade that way. And now I get this point in the middle where I can kind of craft that fade a little bit. And this point at the end where I can control the fade a little bit too. Okay, same thing on the right. I can do a big long fade, craft that fade with this extra point, and adjust it with this point on the right. All right? And always remember, of course, Command Z, undo. Command Z is going to be your best friend as we start making tracks, which we're going to do in just a few minutes. Okay. A few more editing tools. I just want to get us really comfortable throwing clips around, flipping them backwards, moving them around, chopping them up. And then we're going to dive into working on a track. So next, let's talk about split and join. Okay, another kind of often overlooked thing is how to split up a clip. Now, I end up spending a lot of time doing this because I like little glitchy things. So there's a few ways we can do this. One is that we can just kind of highlight something by our grid resolution, which in this case is a quarter note. So I can grab a quarter note, copy it, go to a new track, and paste it. Right? So I can grab little things here and there. If I want to do more, I can zoom in deeper. Now I'm looking at 64th notes, so that's much finer. So that's one way, is you can just highlight little bits and do it that way. But if you want to split a track, you have 2 options. Like if I want to cut a little piece of this out, I could put my cursor somewhere and press Command E. That's going to just kind of slice it, right? So now these are separate. And if I want to do it again, then I just cut out this little piece and I can move it around. Or I'm going to undo that. One thing that I do, which is actually like faster in a weird way, is just delete something. Like if I want to cut these 2 apart, just highlight something, delete it. And then if I just drag this back out, you won't hear that. It'll go right through it, but they've been cut into 2. So Command E or just delete something from within it, and you'll get a slice. Okay, so I could just go Command E, Command E, Command E, and just chop this up all over the place. Move these little slices around. 64th notes, this will be frantic and kind of neat, maybe. Let's hear it. I'm going to solo just this track. Here we go. Cool, sort of, whatever. I'm going to undo all that. Now, if you want to rejoin them, okay, here I have all these slices all over the place. Rejoining them is super easy. We looked at this key command earlier in the other class. What we're going to do is we're going to select the whole clip, everything we want to be in one clip. And this could even go farther. I could select both of these two clips, okay? And Command J. Command J means consolidate. Now what this is going to do is it's going to rejoin everything together, but it's also going to kind of print the track. So if there's effects, if there's warping, anything like that, it's going to save it into the clip, okay? Command J. So now it's one clip. So I often do this. This works on MIDI tracks too, MIDI clips too. So if I have something like, there's nothing really great here, but let's say this bass line, okay? So this is a bass line. And let's say this bass clip, I'm always going to do this twice, okay? And so I don't want to have to copy this twice every time. I just want this to be one clip because that's the full like statement of this riff, okay? So sure, I'm going to go through Command J, merge them into one clip. Okay, now I can just move this whole thing all over the place and it's nice and easy. So Command J is consolidate. That means re-put it back together or put disparate things together. And Command E is to break them apart. One more thing about consolidating, you can consolidate with empty space too. Like let's say these little swoosh things, I can consolidate this and it's going to make an audio file that fills up that space. So I'm going to hit Command J. Okay, so there is my swoosh, bunch of empty space, and another swoosh. This could be useful if I want to put this somewhere else and I don't want to have to find, really dive in there and figure out how to line up those swooshes. This will make it a lot easier to line them up because they're lined up correct here. So if I copy and paste them somewhere else, it'll be fairly easy to do. Okay. Let's talk about something that I haven't talked about yet, and that is using the Finder. In part 1 of this series, I spent a lot of the time talking about the browser and about how you can make your way through the browser and find everything you need. And that's true. The browser is the thing that's going to make you more efficient than most people if you really get good at using the browser. But one thing I didn't talk about is that you can just use the Finder. You don't need to drag things in from samples. Like if you go down to samples and you say, okay, I want like a, sure, I want that sample. I want that vocal sample in here. You can drag it in and that's awesome. But you can also just drag it right in from the Finder. If you have, like here's some little buzz. Cool. If I want to use that, I can just drag that right in. Okay, we should probably drag it onto a new track, but it is right there. There it is. Okay. Now this could cause problems if you drag in a whole bunch of files from all over your hard drives. It's possible that Live starts to lose track of them. So you're going to want to do a collect all and save fairly often. That's going here to File, Collect All and Save. That's going to wrap up all of those things and make a copy of all those clips that you've pulled into Live and put them into your session folder so that Live doesn't lose track of them. So if you're pulling things in from the Finder, get used to doing that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about collect all and save in just a minute, but I wanted to just get into your head that not everything has to be done with the browser. You can just drag stuff right in from anywhere on your computer into Live if you want. So keep that in mind. Okay, couple more things. So one of our most powerful tools for making interesting music is automation. Okay, so let's look at automation again. Remember that automation is just changing a parameter over time. Okay, we can set our volume. Let's do it with this track. Let's zoom way out. Here we go. We can set our volume of this track to be quiet or loud if we want. We can look at our mixer by going down here. We can pull up a mixer. Let's make a little more room. Okay, so here's our mixer. This track is right here, so I can pull that volume down or up. That's all fine, but what if I wanted to start quiet and get louder? Even just a little. That is what we need automation for. So in order to do automation, we need to go into automation mode. You can get that either by pressing just the letter A, or that might not work if you have this MIDI keyboard on. It'll just cause problems. So you can either turn that off and then just press A, or you can go to View, Automation mode. Okay, and with automation, we get all of these lines. Okay, so in order to automate a parameter, anything, just click on it. Okay, so if I want to automate the volume, I can click here. Now that line is volume. I can also click down here. Okay, so let's say this is my volume. I'm going to make a point, and then at this point, I want my volume to be up. Okay, now that volume is going to get louder over time. Maybe I don't want it to be so extreme. I can do that. And if I want it to be curved, put my mouse over it till it turns dark, just like that. I hold down the Option key and then click and drag, and I get nice curves if I want that. Virtually any parameter can be automated. Okay, so I can automate my panning. I can automate any kind of plugin. Let's go up to my instrument here. Here I have this instrument on it. If I want to, this filter envelope, if I want to automate this filter envelope, I can do that. I just click on it once, and then I do it like that. And now as I play it, you'll see it change over time. Anything that is automated gets a little kind of pinkish dot. That just tells us that parameter is being controlled by something else. Okay? Let's look at what happens here. Here it comes. Okay, not a dramatic effect there, but it works. Okay, so anything you want to automate, just go into automation mode and click on it. You should see it show up here once you click on it. In automation mode, you'll get these double drop-down menus. This one shows us the device, and this one shows us the parameter. So Dark Poly Pad has these parameters available to it. Okay, I can also just go to like the mixer, and then I get panning, volume, crossfade, reverb, and delay. Okay, so there's a lot of different things you can get access to. Automation will be the thing that makes your tracks go from good to great. Okay, if you get really good at automating and doing the fine detail work in your track, that's where things start to sound really good. So it's very important to get comfortable with automation. Okay, there's a couple things that are actually really kind of hard to automate and that people ask me about all the time. One is the tempo, and the other is like time signature changes and things. But if you want the tempo to go from a tempo to another tempo over an amount of time, that's actually kind of tricky to do. It's actually easy, it's just really hard to find. So let's go to a new video and do that. Okay, if you want to change the tempo of your track, so our global tempo is up here. Everything is going to run on that tempo. And you can automate the tempo. It's a little weird. So you can either control click on the tempo and say show automation, but sometimes it's not clear where that comes up. The tempo automation is in our master track, our main right here. Okay, so if I go down to main and I select mixer, I can say song tempo. Okay, so my range is 60 to 120. So 87 is my tempo. I can go up to 200. So yeah, that's how you do it. If you want to do a sudden change of tempo, this is how you do it. You just make a point and change it like that. And you'll see our tempo jumping all over the place. Let's unsolo that. Whoa, crazy. All right, let's chill that out. Now, if you want to clear all automation, like I kind of want to do here, I can control click on the parameter and say delete automation. That works for basically any parameter. Okay, now time signatures. You cannot automate time signature changes. It's weird. But if you think about automating time signatures, that's kind of a head scratcher anyway. You wouldn't really want to do that. Live deals with time signatures in a weird way. Like if I double click on a clip, you can see what the time signature is here. Live says it's 4/4. If I change this, like, okay, now it's 4/16, sure, it's gonna sound the same. Live doesn't need time signatures to tell it how to play notes. All the time signature does is change our grid. Okay. So now you can see we've got 4 quarter notes here for some reason. Let's go back to 4 and let's do like a 5/4. Okay, now there's 5 quarter notes in the grid, but my notes are still in the same spot. They didn't like adjust to a new time signature. So all time signatures really do here is tell us, is change the grid so that we can see where we are. That's really it. That being said, if you want to change the time signature, it's a little different than tempo. You're going to go up here to the same spot that we used to put locators in. And you're going to right click or control click and say insert time signature change. And then you're going to type a number / another number. They can be whatever you want. 1637 time. Okay? That's weird. That's the weirdest time signature that's ever existed. But there it is. I don't even know how you'd count that. But again, this time signature, it's not going to change any notes. It's going to sound the same. It's going to sound the same. It's just going to change your grid all around. Okay, so let's delete that so that we're back to where we are. So tempo, automation, and setting different time signatures. You can set as many time signatures as you want. You just can't create a time signature, another time signature, and draw a line between them. It really wouldn't do anything anyway. Okay, last thing in this section, I just want to remind you that the way we have to share sessions. Now, I'm going to be sharing a few sessions with you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the session that we're working on and go to File, Collect All, and Save. Now, like I just mentioned a minute ago, this is going to pack up all of our files from all over the place and make a folder. Okay, so when you do a collect all and save, you're going to want to do this whenever you're going to send a session to somebody. This is going to pack everything up and make sure that they can open it. It doesn't guarantee they have all the same plugins or instruments or anything like that, but it does at least guarantee they have all the right files. So I would recommend selecting these first three: files from elsewhere, files from other projects, files from your user library. Turn those on yes. Files from factory packs, this is going to make your file really big if you turn it on, if you're using a lot of stuff. So I usually leave that off, assuming that everybody has the kind of main factory packs. But you can turn it on if you want. Okay, so if I click OK, which I'm going to do, it's going to save everything into a folder. And that folder looks like this. Okay, so when you save something, you're going to get all of these folders that have a bunch of stuff in it. So next, I'm going to turn this into a zip file. For me, on a Mac, I can just Control-click and say compress. Okay, and now I have that project. I should probably give it a better name than Untitled Project, but whatever, you get the point. Now I can send this to someone using Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever, and it should open the same as I've been using it. But without that collect all and save step, it won't. So when I post projects in this class, they're going to look like this. They're going to be a zip file. When you get them, you're going to double click on that zip to open it, and then you're going to have all of this stuff, and you're going to open that session. Cool? Okay. Enough talking. Let's make something.